We recommend this product be installed by a competent gunsmith.
Modification of your firearm may nullify the warranty of the firearms manufacturer.
No liability is expressed or implied for damage or injury which may occur from improper use or installation of this product.
You are responsible for the safe handling, legalities, and use of your firearm.
Warning: always wear safety glasses when working on firearms. For this installation, you'll need a 16th-inch pin punch, a starter punch roughly 3/32 inch diameter, a 3/32 inch pin punch, a pair of needle nose pliers, roll of tape, and a small hammer for metalworking or gunsmithing. The Apex Sear can be identified by the Apex logo being lasered on top of the Sear itself, versus the factory not having a laser mark at all. The first step of reassembly is to take the Apex Sear, lay it face down on the table, take the factory Sear spring, take the little leg on the side, and drop it into the Sear and hook that leg into the small hole on the Apex Sear. Next, we're going to position the Sear carrier on top of the Sear. Take the wider, short leg, drop it into the Sear between the Sear spring and the Sear body. We'll take the upper Sear carrier pin, one of the pins, it doesn't matter, they're both the same. We'll slide it in from right to left, making sure we capture the Sear spring and the Sear as we go all the way across in that assembly. The next step will be to tension the Sear spring. So what I need to do is I need to hold the Sear, bring the Sear down, and I need to hook it underneath this little triangular shaped ledge here. To do so, I'm going to pull the pin back out of the Sear till it just clears the side of our Sear. That'll allow the Sear to wobble sideways so we can hook it around that lobe and drop it underneath. Once it's there, I'll press this pin back through, and now I have my Sear under spring tension. Next, we'll take the right side of the fire control housing. Note that the smaller two holes are on this housing. The other housing has a larger hole in this location. We'll take the Sear assembly and drop it into the housing with the two pins forward and dropping the pin on the back of the Sear carrier into the cavity on the back of the housing. Also note that the coil spring at the bottom has to be facing the rear when you assemble this. When properly assembled, the Sear carrier will sit in the cavity on the housing and the Sear carrier spring will sit in this orientation. Next, we'll take the left side of the fire control housing and set it on top until it locks in place. There are pins to locate them together. You're going to need to hold the assembly together for the remainder of the process. Next, we're going to install the Sear carrier spring pin. First, we're going to press the Sear carrier to the rear. We're going to take the Sear carrier spring pin, press it through the spring, and make sure it goes across both halves of the Sear carrier. Now we're going to reassemble the Sear cam and spring. When you put the cam in, make sure the high end of the cam is up toward the frame rail when you install it into the housing. I'll put the spring on first. I'll roll the housing down so I can keep the spring on the cam. I'll press it in, and then I'll press the Sear down while I press that spring in to capture it. Once it captures, all I have to do is hold the housing together to keep it in under tension. Then I can rotate it over, I can put the clip back on it, and that holds it all in place, and now we're ready for reassembly. When dealing with the thumb safety Sear housing assembly, be very cautious about the ball bearing and spring. They're very tiny and very easy to lose. Take your time so you don't lose the components. If you have a non-thumb safety model, you put a silver buckle on the back of the Sear housing. In this case, we're going to put the thumb safety back on with the spring and plunger instead of that silver buckle. We'll start off by putting the spring and plunger back into the hole. Be aware you may need to use a slightly magnetized pin punch or screwdriver to put things back. So I'll use my slightly magnetized pin punch, put the spring back into the hole, and then I can take the ball bearing and put it back on top. And this is where you have to be very careful and hold it very, very delicately in place so you don't lose anything. With the ball bearing and spring in place, I'm going to hold those down with my thumb. At the same time, I'm going to press the disconnector down so it clicks behind the Sear. At this point, it's pressing the Sear housing apart, so I have to hold tight and keep it together. Now I'm ready to put my thumb safety back on. To reinstall the thumb safety, once I have the disconnector pressed in and I have the ball bearing in place, I'll put the tab over the ball bearing, press it down, and roll the thumb safety on from the bottom. Now that my thumb safety is over that, it kind of pops into place. And at this point, I'm ready to put my thumb safety Sear housing block back into my frame.